योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिमानतोऽस्मि। लये सम्बोधयेच्चित्तं विक्षिप्तं शमयेत् पुनः सकाशायं विजानीयात् समप्राप्तं न चालयेत्। Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. In our last class, we studied the first of the Ashtanga series of sutras. The very first sutra was Ahimsa Satya Asteya Brahmacharya Aparigrahaha Yamaha. So the next sutra makes these yamas applicable universally. So the question is that all of these things, every rule has an exception. So do these rules also have an exception is a question. Is there some exemption for us to actually indulge in himsa karya, to tell a lie, etc.? So to make sure that it is very clearly known, Patanjali Maharshi in the next sutra, sutra number 31 of chapter 2 says, this is a universal applicable to everybody. Jati, Desha, Kala, Samaya, Anavachinnaha, Sarvabhauma, Mahavratam. He cannot be more emphatic than this. First he says Sarvabhauma, it is sovereign. And next he also says Mahavrata, it is a great vow. So great vow, Mahavratam, and then it is to be contrasted with everyday ordinary vrata. Ordinary vrata has got some preferences. Some days you can do, like for example today is Mahalaya Amavasya. On this special Mahalaya Amavasya day, we think of our forefathers. But we don't have to do that every other day. Every single day we don't have to do that. Of course, every single day we say Matrudevo Bhava, Pitrudevo Bhava. You may think of your parents, but you don't think of 7 generations, 12 generations. You are not thinking about all of them all the time. But on Mahalaya Amavasya day you do. But then it becomes a vrata on Mahalaya Amavasya day, but it does not become a Mahavrata. To honor our parents, Matudevo Bhava, Pitrudevo Bhava, it's a Mahavrata because it has to happen every day at all times. So for all pursuits, whenever we say that you practice Ahimsa, Asteya, etc., we have got to consider who is the adhikari or who is the competent for that, to whom this subject is addressed. Who should be doing all these things? Every instruction that is given in our business life, even our transactional life or in spiritual life, we always look at who is the person to whom it is addressed. And that depends on the person's guna and karma. Guna means his ability, karma means the activity that one is enjoyed. So, guna and karma are actually related to 4 coordinates, and those coordinates are they must belong to a particular class called jati, and this must happen in a particular place called desha, and should happen in a particular given time kala, and under circumstances samaya. So 4 of them are there: desha, kala, jati and samaya. And ahimsa, satyam, asteya, all of these things are mahavrata. It applies to jati, desha, kala, samaya, anavachinnaha. Anavachinnaha means these 4 factors need not be taken into consideration when we are prescribing these mandates of non-violence, truthfulness, etc. Now, an interesting question arises. While it can be mandated universally, is it possible to apply it universally? is the question. Many a time it may not be possible to apply universally. So let us take some examples of these jati, desha, kala and samaya. Let's take the example of jati. Now here we have a set of people who are trained to be physicians. So we will consider that a jati of physicians. We have a group of people, a class of people, a set of individuals who are trained to be physicians. Only they can treat a patient. So there is a condition of jati. It is possible for a non-physician who is not actually having a certification to know about a particular disease and how to treat it, but because he does not belong to that jati, he cannot practice medicine, whatever be his knowledge. Jati. What about the conditions for this jati? This physician can treat a patient only in a particular desha, in a particular place. He cannot practice medicine anywhere and everywhere. It has to be in a desha, and it has to be done in a kala, at a given time, only in a particular time. And also the fourth condition is samaya or circumstance. A physician does not treat a healthy individual and give him medication. So what is the circumstance? The circumstance is that the patient should be sick and he should be needing a medication. Then only medical practice becomes possible. So what are the conditions? There must be a jati, must belong to the jati of physicians, and then it must be done in a clinical setting, desha. It must be done at a particular time, kala, timeliness, and fourthly, it must also be needed. Therefore, all these four are there. But ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya are not subject to these conditions, is what this sutra is saying. Therefore, they are sarvabhauma. They are paramount. And they are also vrata. And when he says it is mahavrata, means that there are no exceptions at all. But now we have got to be careful to say that this is mahavratam, because ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, parigraha can be a mahavrata only for a sannyasi. Please note. Even though Patanjali Maharshi says that it is mahavratam, he has got in his mind only a sannyasi. But other varnas, brahmacharya, grihastha and vanaprastha, it cannot become a mahavrata. So we have got to see certain circumstances where it cannot become a mahavrata. Let's take a kshatriya. Now a kshatriya should and can inflict himsa on an enemy. When does it become ahimsa? A kshatriya is actually killing an enemy. When does it become ahimsa? Only when he kills an enemy of an enemy country without hatred for that particular soldier. It just so happens that he belongs to the army of the enemy country. And he is fighting for the enemy country and I am fighting for my country. So I cut down an enemy army, but for that particular person I have no hatred. Then we are exercising ahimsa. That is the nuance here. Why I emphasize this point is, one of the things we have been dealing with is PTSD. So in the light of this PTSD, and some of you who are in the roles where you have got to help people who are going through PTSD, this aspect that ahimsa is a mahavrata for a sannyasi, but for a soldier it is not, has got to be clarified. If we do not provide this exception, that a Kshatriya in a war can kill, then what happens? Instead of making the person a yogi, we will make him a rogi by asking him to say that ahimsa you have got to embrace as a Mahavrata. This problem has been addressed in the Mahabharata. So let's go back and look at the situation in Mahabharata. The Kurukshetra war is over. Bhishma Pitamaha is lying on the bed of arrows. Yudhishthira is thinking about all the events that are going on in the war. And then he has become extremely depressed. He has been thinking, it is in my name that this war has happened. If I had not accepted the advice of everybody and entered into this war, if I had simply gone to the forest or remained in the forest, which living I had got used to, so much bloodshed would not have happened. Including my most respected grandfather is lying here. The guru who has taught me has been killed. All my cousins have been completely wiped out. All of this has happened in my name. He has got overwhelming guilt and shame. Guilt and shame, classic symptoms of PTSD. So Yudhishthira is going through that. How can I ever justify these killings? So he is completely shaken. That was when Krishna has brought him in presence of Bhishma Pitamaha. Remember, Bhishma Pitamaha has been on the deathbed. And the cause for that deathbed is this war. And the leader of this war is Yudhishthira. He comes to Bhishma Pitamaha telling about his mental condition. Look at the irony. Whereas Bhishma Pitamaha must be immensely angry. He is the person who has actually made me get into this position. Instead, look at his advice. This trend has to be is a powerful tool for us to speak to people who are going through great depression and who are also going through condemning themselves, saying that I have done these terrible things. I have done himsa. I have told a lie. I have transgressed my vows. And Patanjali Maharshi, I am studying. He says it is Mahavratam. I didn't know this, but now that I know, I have got into this state of depression. That's why I said instead of making a person a yogi, by teaching this sutra, we are making him a rogi. Patanjali Maharshi does not have that. He wants to give us the strength. So look what Bhishma Pitamaha says. Kshatriya dharma is to fight a just war. So the first metric is, whenever we are violating any of these Mahavrata dharmas, ahimsa satya asteya, first question we have to ask is it in the light of dharma? That question we have to ask. Otherwise, if you fire one of your employees, then remorse could be there. Yes, the employee deserves to be fired, but I have to see his child, his son who is in the college and his financial conditions. Therefore, I have done something terrible. A remorse can come. But here, it is your vritti dharma, it is your sadharma. First he gives. All of the people who have lost their lives in this war have died because of Swadharma. Because every one of those soldiers for a Kshatriya who fought And dying is also Swadharma only. You did your Swadharma in fighting. They did that Swadharma dying in the course of the war. They didn't run away from the war. You didn't kill somebody who had surrendered to you. To that extent you had done Swadharma. Second point he says, when the time to die comes, a person dies. Nobody can be killed if his time has not come. There is the Kala Dharma. Have we not seen people come out of the most nasty accidents, and then we will say, I cannot believe how this person is alive. It is because the time for him has not come, and therefore Bhishma Pitamaha says, no one can be held responsible when there is no foul play. These are all caveats. First, what they said was Swadharma. Second thing is no foul play. Third, Pandavas have not killed anyone. Actually, who killed is the Kala Purusha. It is the Kala Purusha that took their lives because the time had come. Only thing is, they made all of you, Kala Purusha made all of you an instrument for his work. So, in the discharge of Dharma, Kala Purusha makes us an instrument. And in that when we have become an instrument, we are actually not doing himsa. Then, Kala is also called, all of this I am quoting Bhishma Pitamaha from Mahabharata. Kala is also called Karma Sakshi, the witness of karma. Therefore, as a witness, time has no relationships. No brother, no father, no son, nobody. Time has no bondage with anyone. Time has no favorites. It has no enemies. Therefore, things have happened in time. Whether I have done himsa or not, what is the benchmark? The benchmark is, I have not done any foul play and I have followed dharma. Then, who takes the life of whom and who becomes an instrument? The tool for taking a life is always another living being. What a statement! Extraordinary statement. One living being kills another living being. In other words, the death of every living being is caused by another living being only. A soldier kills another soldier in a war. Bacteria, virus, cancer cells, all living organisms. Those living organisms will take the life of another living organism. Upanishad also tells about this. Adyate atticha bhutani. What favoritism or hatred does a virus or a bacteria has? It has no favor, it has no hatred. And how does it get into a body for causing the death? Who causes it? Kala. It is because of the Kala that this particular organism entered into the body, and the body has to perish because it is Kala Dharma. And then, think about all the people who have died. Everybody who has died. Those whom we know and those whom we don't know. What was the cause of death? The cause of death was not bacteria. The cause of death was not somebody else. The cause of death was not age. The cause of death was karma only. Their karma, the quantum of time that they had to discharge the prarabdha karma on this earth is over. And therefore, because of their karma coming to an end, a person has died. For that, why should one grieve and tell oneself, oh, I could have done this, oh, I could have done that, I failed here, I did not do that. Then what happens? Dukkha and shoka get separated. What is the difference between dukkha and shoka? In dukkha, there is a feeling of sorrow which is coming out of friendship and love. With this person I have lived so long, there has been such a wonderful relationship. Hereafter I don't have this person to have interaction, to talk, to speak, to eat with. That is dukkha. Shoka is where, in addition to missing this person, also blaming myself that I did not do something. So these two things, hey Yudhishthira, be clear in your mind. And then Vidhi, what Vidhi does is, whom does it choose to kill another person? He makes an extraordinary observation, Bhishma Pitamaha. An instrument to kill another person is chosen. And that instrument is abiding by strictly dharma only. Please think about this. What is the dharma of a virus? The dharma of a virus is that when the Kala Purusha says that here is the person whose life has come to an end, you become an instrument to go and kill this person. And that Vidhi chooses only the medium of dharma to kill, not adharma. But sometimes we wonder that what about somebody who does premeditated murder? Why did Vidhi choose a person who did a premeditated murder? And that is adharma, and that is himsa. So what we are discussing now is even killing can be ahimsa. So the person who is committing a crime of murder out of hatred, that person has violated karma, so therefore he has violated Sutra number 30. Now, birth and death. Bhishma Pitamaha continues. Why birth and death exist in the first place? Because we are born, therefore they say that we are destined to die. Then why should I take birth? Is it only to die? Bhishma Pitamaha says, I cannot tell you why. Because that is the secret of the universe. I do not know. Even Bhishma Pitamaha himself says, I do not know why we take birth. You may say it is because of karma, prarabdha karma, you have to get over and all that. It's only an explanation. It is still an explanation of how we take birth and not why we take birth. So Bhishma Pitamaha says, there is no validity for something that is happening for which nobody knows. Tasmat apariharyarthe natvam shochitum arhasi. Even Krishna says this in 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, that for which you don't know, you don't weep. Hey Yudhishthira, If you still think that you are responsible for all these sins, you go and do prayaschitta. Look at that. Let us say that we have done something and in spite of all these explanations, I still feel remorseful. Then what can I do? I can atone. I can do prayaschitta. How do you do prayaschitta? It can be at national level, it can be at international level, it can be at individual level. Since we are talking about national and international level from the Mahabharata, Bhishma Pitamaha tells Yudhishthira, you go to those countries whose kings have died in this war. Find out who is the rightful heir to the throne. Install those heirs onto the throne. Give them all the financial and other resources and stabilize those countries. This is from Mahabharata, which is exactly what we did. Remember, when Saddam Hussein was killed, what did we do? We did not simply abandon Iraq. We went there, even after the regime change, we invested lot of money for the Iraq reconstruction. And thus at national level we can do prayaschitta, at personal level also we can do prayaschitta. And he gives another example. Even gods in the battle actually killed Rakshasas. And they have also killed the Brahmanas who took the side of Rakshasas. So it is a Kshatriya dharma you have discharged. So if anyone strives to destroy dharma completely, such evil ones have to be destroyed. And therefore, in spite of giving all the opportunities, the Kauravas did not come back and adhere to dharma. Therefore, what you did is right, including killing me. Look at the clarity of thought in Bhishma Pitamaha's. I deserve to lie here. Because in spite of all this knowledge, I took the side of adharma only. So therefore, do not make emotional choices. You can redeem yourself. If you think you have done papa karya, then you can redeem yourself. If you think, you can do prayaschitta. There are some who have no redemption. As I said, for a murderer who goes to Columbine or who goes to Sandy Hook and then simply kills, for such a person there is no redemption, because during the papa karya he had a papa bhava. His mind was twisted. He continued to do papa karya with papa bhava. After papa karya is over, he was shameless. With all these things. And therefore, hey Rajan, go help those kingdoms settle down. You don't agonize over all these things. By doing that, you are purified. Your Rajya is purified. You continue to build on dharma and you be at peace. So much is there. By carefully reading this sutra, should we take it as a Mahavrata or as a Vrata? For a sannyasi, this is Mahavrata. Under no circumstances a sannyasi can say, I am going to protect Kshatriya dharma, because he has chosen to be a sannyasi. That is why when taking sannyasa, the person is shaved, the head is shaved off. The reason for shaving off the head, actually the way they do is, they take this person who wants to become a sannyasi, he will go into a water body up to his neck. and then they shave off the head, and then he disrobes in the water, and the new robes are given to him. That means every vestige of, including Yajnopavita, every vestige of his other three ashramas are removed. And then for him, Ahimsa Satyam is a Mahavrata. So next we will take about Satya. What about Satya? Are there any exceptions? Dharma Shastra gives two exceptions. One is where you have to save your own life, when our own life is in jeopardy, and you want to save somebody else's life. Mahabharata itself, in Shanti Parva, Bhishma Pitamaha gives this also. Pranatrane anrutavachyam atmanova parasyacha. That means if you have to save somebody's life, you have to do this. There was a rishi, and these rishis live at the edges of forests, and then they have very small hermitage, maybe 10 by 10, that's about it. So that is where they cook, that's where they sleep, and then most of the time, especially in India, where the weather is not too cold, what they do is they build a porch, or they will have a tree in front of their house, and the ashrama will be on the banks of a river. So they will come out, sit on the porch or sit under the tree to meditate. That's how these ashramas are built. They don't build the huge ashramas you see today from some of the dharma gurus, air-conditioned, multi-storied, etc. Very, very frugal. And our rishi was sitting in front of his ashrama under a tree, and then he was meditating. Then one day in the afternoon, a person runs and then runs to him panting, and then he prostrates before the rishi. And then he prostrates and says, "Sir, I am a merchant. I was passing through this wooded area. Robbers attacked me, and they completely robbed me of everything. There's nothing I can do against 20 men. But I heard them talking. This man whom we have robbed has seen us here. Secondly, this is where we live. So if we let him go, he will report to the police, he will show where we live, he will identify us. Therefore, it is not safe for us to let him live, so let us kill him." As they were conferring and talking about this, I overheard and I ran away from that place. I have come here, they are chasing me, sir, please protect me. And the rishi said, "Go hide in my hut." Small hut, obviously. And the rishi is sitting outside. 10 minutes later, the robbers come. And when they come, they see that, they asked the rishi, "Did you see anybody running here in front of you? Now tell me, what should the rishi say?" The rishi is wedded to always say the truth. Satyam. What he said was, "I have not seen anybody." He tells a lie. According to Patanjali Maharshi, is that correct? Is he doing a papa by telling a lie? Number one, the answer is no. Because Dharma Shastra says, "Pranatrane anrata vachyam atmanova parasyacha." If I have to save somebody's life or my own life, then I can tell a lie. That is not enough. Look at the sequence of the rule of this yama. The sequence of the rule determines the hierarchy of application. Ahimsa is number 1. Number 2 is Satyam. That means any Satyavakya that we speak should subserve Ahimsa. Isn't it? Priority. This is the reason why we called Ahimsa Paramo Dharma. Among all the dharmas, the highest dharma is Ahimsa. So if Himsa possibility is there, coupled with adharma, then it is correct to say untruth. And therefore, the Rishi says a lie. So coming back to our own practice, Chapani sir.
Is the receiver of the benefit of this episode, is that also important? And the reason I ask is there was quite a bit of discussion, if you remember, Apple iPhone, they made a promise saying that you cannot break into an Apple and they will not give anybody a code to somebody's iPhone. And in California, about 2 years ago, the CIA pursued a terrorist and shot him to death and recovered his iPhone on which he was actually talking. But because it was locked, they could not get into the iPhone to find out who he was talking to and so on, because that information would have been very valuable to them to find other terrorists who might do damage to this country. And when the chief executive officer, Cook, was asked to let them open up this iPhone, give us how the mechanism by which we can do it, the CEO said, we made a promise to our customers. That's the highest promise that we keep, and it doesn't matter who the person is, we will not break the promise. And it was a national controversy at the time. So I was just thinking, when you gave this example, if that person was not the merchant, but was actually a robber running away after doing damage, so is the object that you're trying to save also, does it have any weight in what we are trying to do? And if so, what would be the framework a CEO of Apple should use when they have this kind of information about a terrorist, but to keep the customer promise, they would not reveal that information even to the national security?
Now, in this circumstance, the Rishi, because of his training, he will not second guess what the person says. The person said, I am a merchant, and it is taken on face value. And therefore, in the example that I gave, what the Rishi did is according to Dharma, because he has no reason to disbelieve a total stranger when he said he is a merchant. But in the case of the Apple also, the charge made by the government is that he is a terrorist. What does Apple know about it, whether he is a terrorist or not? So the merchant who came and surrendered to the Rishi could be the robber. He might be one of them who is being chased by the merchant to kill. Therefore, the point, the stand taken by Apple is correct, because they are not the one to adjudicate whether the person is a terrorist or not. And therefore, they have to keep their promise.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. That was a very big case, and it's discussed in business circles all the time, because ethics is an important part of this, and there's quite a bit of controversy. But I think people do tend to agree with you, saying that it's not Apple's job to solve the terrorism problem, it's the CIA's. That's what they were being paid for.
Correct.
And as far as Apple is concerned, even the terrorist was a customer,
That's
and
it.
they have to keep their promise.
That is, and the thing is, he is a customer, and there is no classification of customers as good, bad, and ugly.
That's right. That's right. Thank you.
But if from some reliable agency this comes and it's affecting so many people and so many people's life is at risk, isn't that okay for Apple to reveal it, Ashwath Garu?
No, then you have got to institute proper statute. Then you institute, that's what, they all tried all that. You institute a proper statute. If you do that, it violates the fundamental rights. See, so then it's not as simple as we see on the face of it. So how do we determine dharma? Here is Apple, here is a customer. As far as Apple is concerned, the relationship with that person is customer and business relationship. That is all. Dharma is, I protect my customer. And as far as the government is concerned for dealing with the terrorism and all that, they have different other tools. Or they must create appropriate tools also. Isn't it? So let them fight up to this Supreme Court for that matter and determine that in those circumstances the eminent domain can be exercised. Already there in law there is a provision of eminent domain. They can take away your property for the sake of nation and give you a compensation. That's all.
In fact, the courts sided with Apple at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And the reasoning was that, as Rajnigaru said, today you might say this is a terrorist. Tomorrow you may have a false statement you make about my phone saying that I'm a terrorist. How does Apple know whether I'm a terrorist or not? So they will be revealing my information just because a person in authority is making these claims. So it will be a slippery slope where there will be no privacy anymore and government can do whatever they want to do. So that was the argument they used at the time.
So I think that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah. That's why they say Gahana Dharmano Gatihi. Mahabharata itself says it is very difficult to determine what is dharma. So we have to compartmentalize all our emotions. I am also very scared about terrorists. We don't want terrorists in our country. And at any cost we have got to confront them. No doubt about that. But then we should not also violate the dharma because you will be creating an ahimsa and nobody will trust any business which makes a promise. Now that is a bigger problem. So the next sutra will pick up the niyama, shaucha, santosha, tapaswadhyaya, ishvara pranidhanani niyamaha. Niyama means a rule, a practice. So the earlier sutra, yamas, are what is known as Bahiranga Sadhana. Bahiranga Sadhana means it is all the practices we have got to do in relationship with the outside world. So there is a Bahiranga Sadhana. There is also an Antaranga Sadhana, which is an internal practice. What is the internal practice? That is, I have to be pure Shauchaha. And I have to be Santosha. Santosha has got two meanings. One is that I should be always having a happy disposition, joyous disposition, no matter what challenges come. And also it also means Samyak Tushtaha. That means in the whatever I have at this moment, I am absolutely contented. It's a contentment. And please note, contentment does not prevent enterprise and growth. What contentment here says is, as of this moment, whatever I have input and whatever I have acquired is appropriate to my effort. And I do not compare this to somebody else. Bill Gates is rich. Then Jack Daniels is rich or somebody is rich, but his acquisition of wealth is different from the acquisition of wealth on that I have done. What I have done at this moment, I am absolutely contented. Whether I will strive to increase my wealth tomorrow is a different issue. Then what happens tomorrow when I have added more wealth, at that point of time also I become contented. That means at the end of every unit of time and circumstance, I am contented. That is santosha. So then tapas, of course, is contemplation. Swadhyaya is study of the scripture or study of the text. Ishvara pranidhana, we have talked about it. So shaucha, santosha, tapas, swadhyaya, ishvara pranidhanas are all antaranga sadhana. The two practices, ahimsa, satya, asteya, then aparigraha, and shaucha, santosha, tapaswadhyaya, ishvara pranidhana are complementary in nature. The two practices are complementary. Shaucham or cleanliness has got to be at kaya, vacha and manasa level. Bodily, in speech and in emotionally also. Then santosha is not just happy disposition, as I said, it is also self-satisfaction. I am very comfortable with myself. I am absolutely happy as I am. That is the santosha disposition. And then this is an internal practice, antaranga sadhana. If I get more of whatever I am asking for, it is Ishvara Kripa, it is Ishvara Prasada. When does whatever I acquire become Ishvara Prasada and Ishvara Kripa? When does it become? So this Antaranga Sadhana has to be mapped on to the Bahiranga Sadhana. Anything that I have acquired without Himsa is Ishvara Kripa. Otherwise, I am actually misappropriating Ishvara's property. This is the meaning of Ishavasya Upanishad also. Ma gradha kasya sviddhanam. Don't grab anybody else's things. Then, tapas is austere life, a contemplative life, a mindfulness life. Swadhyaya is a self-study and scriptural study. This brings an interesting question. Why should I study things that are written by somebody else? I am quite intelligent and capable of thinking originally. I don't have to read anybody. That attitude a person can take. I can figure out. This a lot of times we do face with people, isn't it? If we say you study Bhagavad Gita, then say I know everything. Why should I read Bhagavad Gita? You read Yoga Shastra? No, I know how to interact with people. I don't have to read a scripture. At this point of time, he says, Purvacharyas have given us a well-processed, thought-out, experimented, crystallized instruction. For hundreds of years, if not thousands of years. So why recreate the wheel? Every time should we keep on proving 2 plus 2 equals 4? And therefore, Swadhyaya, what it does is, it brings efficiency in our spiritual progress. Ishvara Pranidhana, of course, we have discussed quite a lot. So that means we have got 10 things to meditate upon, given these two sutras, Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, etc. So, an indication about Ishvara Pranidhana. What motivates me to do Ishvara Pranidhana? Suppose I say you worship God. Then we understand that it is worshipping God is ritualistic in nature. Now, two things can happen. I may not believe in ritual. Secondly, I may not have access to ritual. Two things can happen. So how can I do Ishvara Pranidhana? I can do Ishvara Pranidhana because of Swadhyaya. When you do scriptural study, what does the scripture say? Antarbahishcha tat sarvam vyapya narayana sthitaha. You are doing the scriptural study. It says, this Narayana is the one who is pervading inside me and outside me. Where did you find out? You find out by reading the scripture. And then what you do is, you read a Purana. Look at the sequence. You studied the Veda. It made a statement inside and outside there is Narayana. But then you need an anecdote for that to understand. Bhagavata gives you an anecdote against Swadhyaya. In Bhagavata, now a playful child, Krishna, he is a toddler. He is playing on the sands of the Yamuna river with all his friends. He takes a little bit of mud and puts it in his mouth. And what the mother finds, that he has the entire universe is in his mouth when he opens it. So the Vishwa, the entire universe is in his mouth. And this child is surrounded by the world. There is the Yamuna river, there are the Gopikas trees, there is the all the cows, the trees, everything is there. He is in the world. And the entire world is in his mouth. So what does Swadhyaya do? Veda will tell you inside, outside there is Ishvara. Purana will give you a story to illustrate that inside, outside is Ishvara. Therefore, what the Swadhyaya does is, it adds to our tapas. And it makes us understand the importance of Ishvara Pranidhana. And that's also the reason why you see sequentially we have to practice. You practice ahimsa. In the boundary of ahimsa, you practice satyam. In the boundary of satya, you practice brahmacharya. Like that, in the boundary of shaucham, you practice santosha. And Ishvara Pranidhana and Swadhyaya. So you do tapas then. Let us take the idea of saying, the first sutra says, don't appropriate anybody's property, asteyam. But it is very attractive. I want to take it, if I can. So how do we balance this? We have to go into an exercise. What is the exercise? You take one value from Sutra number 30, let us say ahimsa. And you take one practice, antaranga sadhana, from the next sutra. Then what do? Antarbahishcha tat sarvam vyapya narayana sthitaha. Inside there is Narayana, outside there is Narayana. Everywhere there is Narayana. In everything there is Narayana. That's what we read in Swadhyaya, right? When you read this in Swadhyaya, you don't do ahimsa. Swadhyaya belongs to this sutra. Ahimsa belongs to the previous sutra. So by doing antaranga sadhana, bahiranga sadhana becomes perfect. Why is it that I don't inflict pain on anybody? Because Swadhyaya tells me that Ishvara is there everywhere, in everything. So if whose existence is because of Ishvara in me, I hurt you, whose existence is because of Ishvara. In you, I am hurting myself. And this wisdom who gives? Swadhyaya gives. Let us take Asteya, another value from the first sutra. Asteya means I don't appropriate anybody else's possession. Now let us see what is the complementary internal practice from Bahiranga practice to Antaranga practice. I am contented with myself. I have santosha. When I have santosha, how can I crave for somebody else's possession? The reason I gave these two examples is to show that yama and niyama are complementary to each other. The knowledge of yama inspires us to do niyama. The practice of niyama makes our yama successful. Do you want to practice ahimsa, satyam, asteya? Then you have to do niyama. So antaranga sadhana and bahiranga sadhana are both required. The key to this is tapas. Because what does tapas do? It solidifies yama and niyama. Tapas is the link, the glue that brings together yama and niyama. And therefore, all the time we have got to do tapas. And that is the reason why the second chapter starts with the word tapas. So in our study of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, not only we study sutra, not only we study all the sutras sequentially, every word also has to be seen sequentially. Because that is how the philosophy grows. Now I have to ask one more question. Why we are doing so much debate? This hair-splitting business. Is it just because that we have got a free afternoon on a Sunday? You have to ask this question. In the light of Yoga Sutra, without this processing of the mind, without processing these concepts, we can never free our mind from Mudha, Vikshipta and Kshipta states. How can we get rid of the kleshas without tapas, without the practice of yama-niyamas? All the vrittis, that is Vikshipta, Mudha and then Kshipta, these three states, what is our experience and what is our analysis? We think it is natural. Restlessness is my nature. Confusion is my nature. That's what all of us say, isn't it? If that is so, yama-niyamas are useless. Because whatever is natural, you cannot change. Say, for example, there is water, there is a river, there is a pond. On this pond, a lot of moss has grown. And you say it is very dirty. But if you remove all this dirt and moss, what happens to the river? Purity comes back, isn't it? What does it say? Water is pure. Only thing is, on the water, lot of moss has gathered. By removing this moss, water becomes pure. Therefore, the case made here is our mind is naturally pure. Can you think what a confidence it builds up for us? I am pure. I am eternal. I am liberated. Nitya Shuddha Buddha Muktoham. Nityaha, I am eternal. I am Shuddha, I am pure. I am Muktaha, I am liberated. But we are living in an unnatural state. And that unnatural state has happened because we never cared about going back to our natural state, and therefore Patanjali Maharshi is saying Yama Niyama are the cleansing agents. And they are restoring our mind to our natural state. If that was not so, Sutra number 2.1 was enough. Tapaswadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhanani Kriya Yoga was enough. Why introduce Ashtanga Yoga? While Tapaswadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhana have to be done without Yama Niyama, it is not possible to go back to our original pure state because of the contamination. That's why we call this as niyamas. Why did we call it as niyama? Ni plus yama, etymologically. Ni means nischayena. That means with certainty. These practices establish us in dharma. They establish us in purity. They establish us in chitta vritti nirodha. And therefore we need this. We are not creating anything new by Yama Niyama. We are only going back to what we truly are. One interesting sutra comes. After Yama Niyama Asana Pranayama, it will introduce, it will say it is Mahavrata, and then it will now say that when you have got or any negative thought whatsoever, what should you do? Vitarka badhane pratipaksha bhavana. Whenever unwholesome thoughts come to us, they can be neutralized by wholesome thoughts. And for that, Yama Niyama practice is critical. One final question. In Sutra number 30, they said Ahimsa Satyamasteya Brahmacharya Aparigraha Yamaha. So he talked about the Bahiranga sadhana or external sadhana. 30. 32, Sutra 32 started talking about Niyama. In between 30 and 31, he introduced another sutra, Jati Desha Kala Samaya Anavachinnaha Sarabhoma Mahavratam. It does not limit itself to Jati, Kala, Desha and Samaya, which we discussed. That means our niyamas are also like that. For yamas, there is no limitation or a prohibition of Jati, Desha, Kala, Samaya. Does it apply to niyama also? If it did, what would have Patanjali Maharshi would have done? He would have given us the yamas, followed next sutra would have been niyama, the third sutra would have been Jati, Desha, Kala, Anavachinna. The reason that he did not, he introduced it before niyama means niyamas are conditional. Yamas are unconditioned, niyamas are conditional. Say for example, shaucham, keeping ourselves pure. At the grossest level, it is taking a shower. If it was Sarvabhauma Mahavratam, then 24 hours we should be in the shower. Isn't it? It would have become silly. And therefore, this Jati, Desha, Kala, Niyama applies to niyamas. They have to be applied in particular circumstances only. Otherwise, we will again be violating dharma. Santosha, for example, contentedness. If contentedness was a Mahavrata in Kala and Samaya, what happens to our materialistic growth? There would have been no materialistic growth whatsoever, because you are always in a contented state. So contentment is limited to the end of this working day. At this end of working day, I am contented with my situation, with my knowledge, with my education, with my tapas, with my swadhyaya, with my wealth. Tomorrow I have to add more quality, quantity to all of this. And therefore, niyamas are conditioned by jati, desha, kala, samaya. And therefore, Patanjali Maharshi did not write that sutra after niyama. Now, next question we have to pick up is when we get the doubt, what should we do, which we will see in our next class. Thank you.